All right, we are live on Facebook. And so, Greg, if you can again just do your awesome moderator, and then if they have any questions, just flag them over to me because I can only see what we got going on here. I can only see us. So, the verse that I wanted to just do a quick look at is in Malachi. And I need to do a screen share here. So, let me get the right buttons. Screen share. We're going to Malachi. All right. Now, the reason why I want to share this with you guys is because it is, again, it's directly connected to Ken's compass teaching. And it's really important. I want to connect this dot because when I was sharing the video that I released about the Vitruvius man, and I was sharing with you about taking our light into the dark and getting the mark of the covenant and becoming completed and whole, that is the fractal portions on the compass. The east, which Ken has talked about, that is connected to Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is the fulfillment of the tree of life in being crowned with light, the way we were in the time of antiquity before we had skin placed on us as energetic beings that then came into the flesh experience. So we're returning back to that as energetic beings. And as an energetic being, the east is Zarach, you shall arise. And that is what we see in the very first word here. And why I got so excited when Spirit shared this with me this morning is because rising in the east as the sun would rise, this is the embodiment of the letter Kuf, the sun that is at the horizon between that which has been revealed and that which has not yet been revealed, the hidden aspects, and being in the middle between the two. But notice what happened here. We have the hey added on the suffix. Because we have the hey added on the suffix, this is Father's teaching that reveals the dark, the hidden aspects of us, our shadow. So this is the rising of the sun into our shadow, the very first word. But you shall arise, you. And again, no Hebrew word is accompanying with these letters. So if we don't know what the letters are, then you have no idea what it's saying. So arise, what shall arise? Your authority, because you grasped the powers while you were in the waters of chaos and you completed your journey. So now you have the rod of authority. And when we get into the word fear, it's kind of, when we take a look at these words, when they translate it, it can really lock us into things that are not as they should be. Because look at, I so love this. What do we see? Right in the middle of the two yods. So remember, when I've shared with you before, the yod is connected to the aleph because through reduction math, through toroidal math, gematria of the yod is 10. The gematria of the aleph is 1. So you take off the 0 and they both equate 1. So you have the power of mother on the right-hand side, the power of father on the left-hand side, the two visions that give you the power, means, and direction to do what? Resh aleph. To see on the inside at your heart, because this is the center of the word. So this is connected to your heart. They give you the power to see within, to raise you up from being poor and destitute into oneness, unity on the inside. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And then being part of the name, those who go through the living water and the fire that have been given power of what? The sun. And I was sharing about how the Shemesh candle in the center of the menorah is called the servant candle because Shemesh means to serve and to minister. So you're ministering as the sun that lights the rest of the menorah, your chakras, your heart, uniting the lower and the upper. So it's literally like the manifestation of the aleph all over again because you unite the lower and the upper, so the energy flows through you, through your toroidal field at the place of the servant, which is your heart, so that that energy can flow through you. And that's why you can see, and then you get into the word righteousness. This is so great, you guys. Zadi Dalit means adversary. So think of General Zod, like in Superman, General Zod. That is the Hebrew word for adversary. Another word. So we have Satan, but then we have this one, Zad. And it's the journey that you must hunt and chase by going through the door on the inward man so that you can compress light in the center of you in this the revolution of time, finding the narrow path between the light and the dark. This is the word for righteousness that will be revealed. And why is it revealed? Because the light is going into your shadow, revealing the totality of all of you as being righteous, your light and your dark. Our dark doesn't disqualify us from being righteous. Righteous means you took the right-hand path to take your light into the dark, to reveal your shadow, which is then revealing the totality of all of you as the creator of light and dark, where you become the servant of the sun, where there is no shadow anymore. That's so fantastic. And then it brings healing. Rapha. Healing. It brings healing to you because you connected to Mother. You allowed her to pierce you while you were in the waters of chaos. And boy, it was bitter, but it raised you up. And now you have the mouth that speaks truth of the revelation that we are all one. And then wings, kanaf. This is a word that means with covering. So now you have covering. How did you get that? On the inside, because you grasp the power of the spiritual path through the mouth that speaks to you, the power that is necessary to reveal the dark side of you, which is the divine feminine. And then you shall go out, yatsa, you shall go out as one who is connected to Mother in your power on a journey, the journey of oneness where you became completed, Tom, as once being a twin, light and dark, higher, lower, but now having become completed through the journey, no longer in the waters of chaos, but the waters that are above. And I love this. You will grow fat. When they talk about fat, by the way, in the sacred writings, it means that you are no longer sick and diseased, because a thin, weak, feeble person is considered one that has dis-ease in them. When you become plump, it's the way of saying that you have healing and wholeness because you recovered from sickness and disease. Because you connected to Mother through the mouth that brings this edification of the fire, right? Barashit, the fire of the covenant within you that completed you. Ones who were the twins, one who was spiritually mature and one who was spiritually adolescent, and bringing them together in completing it. And in like calves, the reason why it's calves, bull, and steer, it's because of the antics that they do. But look at the beauty of this. Grasping a hold of the power in order to see that which you need to gather and assemble yourself through the teachings that give you power. Because we have the Ein Lamed, which means to ascend. And right in the middle of the word to ascend, Ein Lamed, to see the purpose of the instruction, you have the Gimel. So you're gathering what you need at the heart level. That's what all the teachings are about. They are about your heart, because it is the center cervic candle that connects the light and the dark of you into oneness unity, gathering and assembling yourself so you can be whole, so it can lift you up, so it can lift your heart up. Because remember, we talked about before in a video in the past where it says that the heart is deceitfully wicked. That's the way it was translated. But that's not what it means. It means the heart is melancholy. We need to lift it up. It's melancholy because it's divided itself between a higher and lower self, and it wants oneness unity. That's why it's melancholy. So this gathering and assembling at the heart level is to put all those pieces back together to assemble you to wholeness, which is the process of ascension. And the Gimel, I think it's so funny. Ein Lamed right there means to ascend up high, right? And Gimel means to lift up. To ascend and lift up your heart. I love it. Stall fed. Look at this one. In bitterness you came through the waters of chaos, where you were poor and destitute, raising you up. And Rob, this means to expand you. to extend you, to make you bigger by compressing light. So when we enter into the stall, so if you hear people say that they've entered into the stall, it's because you've entered into the place of bitterness. You feel like you're stalled out. It's a play on words. But you feel like you're stalled out, but you're needing to feed yourself because you found yourself in a bitter spot. Why are you bitter? Because you're melancholy, because you were separated. And you were poor and destitute because you didn't know that you were divided. You didn't know that you were twinned out with a higher and a lower you. They're exactly the same you. They're just twins. One is more mature, the other one is an adolescent. And we're raising you up and we're building you on the inside by what? Compressing light, Kuf, in the circle of time by finding the narrow path between the light and the dark, 0 point energy. This is so amazing, this one verse. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you because it was all, this whole thing was about the oneness unity. And I was looking at this Yod Hey because last week I shared in one of the, when we were talking about why the divine feminine got left out, because King Josiah, his last name, when you look at it, was Yod Aleph Shin, Yod Hey Vav. He stopped and never brought forth the revelation of the divine feminine. That's why he took out Asherah and all the Asherah poles and all of those high places, because his own name declared it's going to be the power of the fire. You need to have Yod Hey Vav, and it meant to connect to the Hey, but he was never given that Hey. He was never given the divine feminine. So he was trying to bring them back into order by his own name of finding the law, the divine masculine portion, so it could set them up to receive the divine feminine. But what he did is he locked him into the divine masculine only because he obliterated Asherah. Because Asherah is Aleph Shin, fire, Resh head. Fire upon the head that is revealed by connecting to your hidden side. I hope you guys connected. If you've been with me for a while, that probably made sense. If you're just new joining, you probably didn't even have any idea what I just said. And I get it. But Asherah is the queen of heaven. Asherah is the place where you have fire upon your head. You've actually become the seraphim message. And Asher, in its root, means the happy and fortunate ones. So Asherah is the ones that are happy and fortunate, that connected to their heart and brought their shadow back home. Those are the happy and fortunate ones. So Josiah, as much as he did good in bringing back something that the people needed so that they could have the golden rule operating, to have a right relationship with one another, and to have respect and honor for that which they didn't know of God, because it wasn't brought inward. It was all external manifestation, as he actually cut them off from that which would have allowed them to enter on the inside. But we weren't ready for it yet. So we only did half the equation. So anyway, this was a beautiful verse that was brought up this morning. And the whole reason why I went on it was because of the revelation of taking from Yod Hey, because the Spirit said the righteousness with the covering from his wings, because the reason why angels are depicted having wings is when they activate their Merkabah. If you take a look with the way the triangle from above and below and they connect, it looks like they have points. It makes it look like they have wings, but it's the movement of the toroidal fields of the energy patterns of the divine feminine and the divine masculine that are counter rotating to one another. And it makes them look like they have wings on their head, wings on their feet, and wings on the side of them. 2 that covers their head, 2 that covers their body, and 2 that covers their feet. It's the activation of the Merkabah. That's the seraphim. So this was the verse that the Spirit wanted me to look at about righteousness with his wings, and it was connected to the sun. The sun is plasma energy. What do you think our Merkabah, our light body, is? Plasma energy. Thor, anyone? Anyway. So that's all I wanted to share with that. Do you guys have anything you wanted to talk about on that aspect? Because I'm going to open it up before we shift gears. It's kind of like a continuation of the the Yod Hey to the Yod Aleph and what this is all meaning for us right now, if we can really grasp a hold of what the languages are saying to us so that we can begin to manifest it. Because it's the vision that's being painted. Does that make sense? Like everything the sacred writing and doing is casting a vision for us so we can grasp a hold of the power within the vision so we can become it. It's like a signpost pointing in a direction for us to go to be able to see it so that we can become it. My people perish for a lack of vision. Well, that's the Yod. You need the power that's going to lead you to the road of oneness on the inside first. So then we can manifest it and get our wings so we can fly. Becoming the butterfly in the cocoon that then is liberated, having wings to fly, our Merkaba body. So if you guys have anything to say, you can. If not, we can move on. But any comments, anyone?
I have comments. I just, when I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh yeah, and this, and that, and this, and now I forget them all.
Yeah, and I guess it's a little difficult for you to write those things down when you're driving.
Yeah, it's a steel trap.
I'm totally get it.
One thing I was wondering, I'm sorry, was, well, a comment is, what came to me was, this is the what, and then I'm wondering the how, because I have visions of these how, and I apply it, and then I go right back looping again, and then I'm like, all right, well, let's do this again.
Yep. Inculcation over and over and over again until it finally sticks. It's a learning process. So, Greg, did somebody have a comment or a question?
Drew is saying that you have a high-pitched hum. I don't hear it, but
yeah, I don't hear it either. I don't have any feedback coming on my computer at all.
I can hear it. I can hear it slightly, but I thought it was maybe my computer.
Yeah, Regina, do you hear a high-pitched hum coming through?
Yeah, I do. It's probably that sweet AC you got going.
No, I don't even have AC on at all. The house is hot.
It's real light, like Renee. Very light. I didn't think it was me. So, I mean, I didn't know what it was. It's really light on my side.
Well, I don't even know why it would.
In fact, I don't hear it now. Oh,
you don't?
I do.
You have to really look for it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do on my end. So.
All right. Well, I don't know what to do with it on my end. I don't know if it's because of the camera that I have, the video that's connected to the camera that I have. I mean, I could try disconnecting this camera and go to my old one. Maybe we can try that. I don't know. We'll see. Hold on just a second here. Let me move that out of the way and see. That would be a bummer because I spent $60 on this. Oh, well.
Well, let's find out if it's tolerable. If it's just if it's just something in the background, maybe we can just continue.
Well, it's up to you guys. So ask in the chat in YouTube if it's tolerable. If it's not, then I'll try to do something with it. If
Claire says she didn't notice it until we pointed it out. So you might be okay.
It's tolerable.
Okay. I'll just have to try to do some investigating on it to see what's going on, to see if there's something else that's different. I don't know. All right. So is there any other questions or comments that need to be made from, I appreciate what you said, Joe. I totally get it. Connecting dots and thinking, and then they fleet away because something else comes up. But
yeah, that happens to me all the time. And I forget. You keep rolling and then it's gone.
I know. The only way is like when I'm talking with Ken, and it's been difficult because Ken will share a revelation with me when we do our morning recording time, and he has really had to suck it up. I mean, he has had to suck it up because you guys have been around me long enough to know that when revelation happens, it's like a champagne bottle, and I get all excited, and it just like, woohoo! And then I'm dot connecting left and right, and he's going, I'm trying to stay on track here. So that's actually why he started typing things down. Or writing them down so that if I do my little aha moments and champagne and party hats all over the place, he has something he can continue to track with because I can be quite distracting. So I get it. I get it. I'm not offended by that at all. It's just I love hearing from you guys of what you're ruminating about while we're discussing these things. But I know I go sometimes a little fast and I don't give enough room for that. And then I mention something else and it's like, oh well, I'll talk about it later. I get it. So if we don't have anything else to share, I actually would like to continue on. Joe, go ahead.
Well, you know, one thing I was thinking about was bitterness and death being.
Yeah.
I did write that down too. I need to research it because I want to look up the two words and see what letters are common between the two.
Well, the
Because I feel
Memons,
like when you're in the because when you're in the place of bitterness, it's lots of scriptures are we fall into death and it's bitter. We're bitter. We were gods, and now it's like, ugh, man, this is heavy.
well, and then, even falling into it by going into the waters of chaos, which is really our loss of memory. We're having to start over every time. and it is bitter for us. And the death is a release. And so it's this one of the things I've had to, so the difference, just to let you know, Joe, memresh is bitter. Death is either mem vav tav or mem tav, but you will see death written as mem vav tav. And many times you'll see the little diamond right above it, which means a gift from God. And this is when we connect to our heart level, because when we connect at our heart level, what this is doing is it takes the sting out of death, because then at that point we realize that we're an eternal being and that death is really liberation from the pain and suffering in the waters of chaos in the flesh suit that we're in right now. That is why our lifespans have been shortened, because there is so much pain and suffering that is only in a limited span of time, space, because of where we find ourselves in the incarnation. So it's not like hundreds of years or 200s or 1,000 years with pain and suffering. It's very, very limited. And then we get to go about it again in a different flesh suit that is limited. And it's actually a gift from God when we're released from every incarnation, because every incarnation has its own pain and suffering that we must deal with. And we get to escape it and go back into that oneness unity before we enter back in with a new experience and a new revelation that is coming to us through the learning process. Hopefully that makes sense. Because again, it's mem tav. So it's finding the covenant of fire that then burns away the sting of death. Because we're eternal beings. So I hope that makes sense there. What I'm doing right now is I'm pulling up the next verse that we're digging into here. What we're digging into is the portion where Matthew 13:14 says, and in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which says, by hearing you shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing you shall see and not perceive. So again, the way it was written in the narrative is Yeshua was talking to him about parables that they're not going to see or hear these things, and then quoting scripture that was written by the prophet Isaiah. And there's a lot that we can see in this verse. It's fantastic. But, I'm a little biased when it comes to the sacred languages. I think everything is fascinating and fantastic and wonderful and interesting. I've pretty much just given up trying to find different words. It's just easier just to let them roll the way they are, because it truly is like Renee, you said something about, yes, it is fascinating. I see why you say that. So I'm just going to keep with it. Otherwise I get stuck trying to sound like I'm some, fantastic, wonderful word orator when I really just want to simply get it across. I don't need to use fancy words. I'll let other people do that. And I know other people that do it much better than I do. So let's just do the nuts and bolts of it and make it as simple and sweet as pie as we can. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and we'll be talking about this so you can see this verse. All right. So here we go. I'm going to move my picture up. Okay. The very, very first word that we look here, and Janet McGeera translated it as "and is fulfilled." Now, this is the word, the root of shalom. Shalom is the root. It's Shin Lamed Mem. And I love this. Party hat, champagne bottle. Sheen Mem is the word Shem, those who are of the name. And right in the middle of it, thanks, Renee, right in the middle of it is the staff of authority. And it pertains to your heart. So those who are of the living water and the living fire, that are of the name, who have a mark of distinction, that have honor, authority, and character, instructed their heart and the inside. And that is why they have peace. Because shalom means to be complete, to be completed, to be safe in mind, body, and estate. Because you had inward instruction and you have the staff of authority, meaning you have authority on the inside of you now. That is so amazing to see that. And it starts out saying we need to connect to Mother. And again, being humble and teachable doesn't mean being humiliated. It means the heart position of still wanting to learn and grow, to remain teachable, knowing that our journey is about us learning and about us becoming and being. And on the end of the word, we have ma, mem aleph, which means this is a word that means a measurement, and it means the hundredfold, 100. So again, connecting to what we are going to be going into with the parable of the seeds, the 30, the 60, and the hundredfold. Mem aleph is through the waters of chaos, you found oneness. And that is directly connected to the thousandfold anointing. So really, when you get into the hundredfold, it really is the thousandfold anointing, which is the Mashiach, the Christ anointing, the oneness unity, because you allowed yourself to be instructed on the inside. And so when we take a look at the fuller picture of what this word means, so there's a lot here, guys. This word encompasses a lot. To die, obey, agree, follow, delivered up, complete, deliver, completed, finish, fulfill, accomplished, conclude. I'm shifting that over here. Make whole, to make whole. Hand over, give up, betray, approve, yield, surrender, and correspond. So you can see that this word, it is an accompaniment of completion of whatever task is available. But again, if you are seeing the words like betrayal or surrender, and you see it as something that's negative, or you see die or death as being something negative or being delivered up, that is because there's a wound that is within you that you're seeing, and you're fixating on that portion of the word. Because when I look at this word, I see finish, fulfill, accomplish, to conclude, to make whole, to be completed and fulfilled, delivered. That's what I see. Because the letters are also telling me that journey. And the reason why I see that manifested that way in this word is because I allowed the consuming fire to burn up what needed to be, and the living water to purify me, so I could be instructed on the inside at the heart level, so that I could enter into oneness unity. That's the beautiful portion of the sacred languages. Whatever wounds that you need to have healed are going to be revealed when you begin digging out this language. And this is what I shared with Brandon earlier, for those of you who were listening. If you do not want to deal with your shadow, don't enter into the sacred languages, because it will reveal to you your shadow. I've seen many people who have entered into the languages, and after a while, they stop and they walk away because they can't handle seeing their shadow. That's the only reason why revelation comes. The only reason why the light comes in new revelation is so that you can deal with the corresponding shadow that is being revealed, wounds that need to be healed. And it is rough. But you also get more illuminated at the same time in bringing wholeness and completeness to you, because you can't have one without the other. So it's trying to stay in too much light. Your dark shadow is going to chase you continually until you pay attention to your wounded child. So that is where this is starting up with. That's the first word of this verse. And I decided to break this down a little bit for you too, because it's important that we see some of these things that are hidden. because I already shared with you about Shem having instruction on the inside, and that the Ma is actually from the Hebrew word meh, memhe. What is it? Which is the root of manna. But it's the waters of chaos that are revealed so that you can get into the waters of oneness while you're in the chaos. Because then it's no longer chaos. Now you've met the 100-fold measure and you don't have to question it anymore. It's like, oh, the whole thing was for me to find oneness, unity in the midst of chaos. I get it. Woohoo! That's great. And then Aleph by itself, the base origin of this word means to be linked together and to be connected. Shin Lamed, which is hidden in here, also means belonging to. So those who were belonging to the waters of chaos found oneness, unity. That's so amazing. They were taught, and so they teach. They were trained. They tamed and yoked themselves, and they bring forth thousands from their teachings. Part of a tribe as a family that are associated together in oneness, unity. This is really bringing forth the mother of all living that was taken out of mankind, Chava, life, connecting to the revelation that we are all one, and bringing the mother of all living back into oneness, because we've even separated ourselves from the earth, from Gaia, when we are all one. And that's what all of this is about, seeing the oneness in everything. And I know for some people that is a very hard concept to grab, because it only can be revealed to you at the heart level. You can read about it in books, you can hear people talk about it, but unless you do that shadow work, because your shadow, your inner child, is going to continue to separate itself from everything out of fear, and because it doesn't want to get hurt. It doesn't want to enter into the heart where home is because of the wounds that it suffered. It's our job to grow it up and mature it and let it know it's safe. Then that leads us to the next word, great segue. In the root of it, it's just a single bet. Bet means within, the inside tent. And look what was added. Wealth and riches. Wealth and riches on the inside. This is not like wealth and riches where we're talking about trying to make a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. This is wealth and riches. This is why the bet is put first. This is wealth and riches that you get on the inside by completing your journey and finding peace within, which is oneness, unity. Because that revelation of your shadow side needs to be connected to, because it is part of your flesh. You can't ignore half of you. It is part of you. You can't ignore it. It is all of you. It is part of your being that became divided. So if you want wealth and riches spiritually, if you want to get full illumination, if you want to have things manifest in your life that you've been looking for, that you've been waiting for, then you need to go on the inside and reveal your shadow to yourself so you can love it back to life, instead of it being in the place of separation and death where it's scared. And then we move into the word prophecy. Prophecy, in its primitive root, this is so amazing. Spiritual seed of life given on the inside to produce oneness. That's what the root means. So to prophesy over someone, to speak prophecy, is about unity. And it's meant as part of a spiritual path that produces the seed of life on the inside of you to produce that nature of oneness, unity. That's the whole purpose of prophecy. So if we are chasing one prophetic word after another, or going from conference to conference to listen to prophetic speakers, you're always going to be left wanting and desiring more, because the purpose of it is to bring forth oneness, unity, starting on the inside. And it has Bet Aleph, which means to come and go, means to come and go. So these prophecies are going to come and go based upon if you're going to connect to them or not. And why do I say that? Well, let's see how it was written. It was written as Nun Bet Yod Vav Tav. Hey, look at all the changes in here. The Aleph was removed, and what did we get? Well, we know the Yod is connected to the Aleph. It's the power of oneness, but you have to connect to the prophecy, which is then leads you to the covenant, which is the covenant of fire, Bereshit. We talked about that last week, that is meant to reveal your hidden side through the hidden teachings. So that what? It can go back to its original intent, which is to bring about oneness unity on the inside. Oneness unity will only happen when you deal with your shadow. You can't ignore it. It will continue to circle around and around and around and around again, over and over and over, like a carousel, coming back to the same spot, the same wound, the same hurt that you end up getting triggered on, that you end up manifesting until you deal with it. Let's take a look at Isaiah. Okay, so again, when we look at the sacred languages, we have to divorce ourselves from the narrative of that which has been written in English. When we get to the esoteric hidden side, because it's all a code about us maturing and looking to see what portion of us is needing to be dealt with. And again, because this is in the Aramaic, this is the fullness of bringing the divine feminine in, which is all about dealing with our wounded child, dealing with the beast ego so it can be brought back into oneness unity, because it separated itself out of fear. So the word Isaiah, this is incredible to see. This is part of the reason why this revelation this morning of Yod Aleph versus Yod Hey was so profound, because I was looking at this yesterday, but it didn't hit home until I was talking with my husband this morning. I like synchronicities all over this place, you guys. Brandon posted something on Facebook about the name of Yod Hey Vav Hey, and it connected to the Native Americans and them singing the name of Yod Hey Vav Hey, and how the person that was putting the video together said that the name of God is Yah. And you can go into Psalms and you can see that. But again, that's only one side of the equation. Look at the morphing of the name Isaiah from the Old Testament, the Brit Kadam, to the Brit Chadashah, to the New Testament. Oh, this is so good, you guys. You can't miss this. This is so good. This is what it looks like in Hebrew. Yod, Shin, Ein, Yod, Hey. Okay. Hold on to your seat here. So, Yod, Shin, Ein is the root of the New Testament name for Yeshua, because Yeshua in the New Testament, yes, he was Yod, Hey, Shin, Vav, Hey. But when he manifested as Yod, Shin, Vav, Ein. But the root of his word, the root of the essence of his name is right here. To be open, wide, or free. He was not bound when he came in. And it means to be safe, to free or succor, which means succor means coming and aiding in the time of need, when somebody's in need. All of humanity was crying out when he showed up because they needed to be freed. They had been penned into the divine masculine because the divine feminine had been kept at bay because of all the wounds that humanity had suffered and had been enslaved to, and had divided themselves, not allowing the divine feminine energy to come in and heal them. So he came and manifested that. So here Isaiah, think about how many prophecies were written by Isaiah, and it's the salvation of Yah is what his name means. But if you don't catch how it morphs to the New Testament, you will completely miss what was being shared here. So this is to be open, free, but only through the masculine. So really, it was like futile. Like he came with the mandate to set people free, to help them, but he was only presenting Yod Hey. Half the equation. Okay, this is good. We're going to build something. Okay, you're going to be building out of your wounds. And so nothing will be sustainable. And you're not going to care about the environment. You're not going to care that you're taking and tearing down forests. You're just going to keep building and you're keep building and you're going to keep building, but you're not connecting to your heart. So his prophecies were full of information, but it needed the divine feminine. And he couldn't present the divine feminine. That's so funny, because he was presenting Yah, but it was the power for it to be revealed. because it was on the suffix side. So Yah was supposed to come to bring the power of the divine feminine that would then save them. But humanity wasn't ready for it yet. So he could only present Yod-Heh. But look what happened in the New Testament. So the Yod became the Aleph. So remember, I was sharing with you the Yod, the gematria is 10, Aleph is 1. Take the 0 off in reduction math. The Yod is directly connected to the Aleph. It's exactly the same. It's the power to oneness. So in the New Testament, it became one. The name became one. And look, it's Aleph Sheen, one fire. Connect to Bereshit, the covenant of fire that is within your heart. And look what added on the front of it, the door. The door within to bring the one fire on the inside that will give you the ability to see, Ein, the eye, to see Yod Aleph, right there, the power of oneness. Yod He Vav He now coming together in oneness unity. So in presenting Yod He as being the salvation, which was meant to bring forth the oneness unity, by the time it gets into the New Testament, because Yeshua showed up as both the masculine and the feminine, as Yod He, Shin, Vav He, to bring the fire, Isaiah's name even changed. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's like the quantum entanglement of our now revelation of getting the fire within us affects the future and the past and bringing them into the now. Isaiah's name was changed. And his message was fulfilled. Oneness unity. The fire reestablished by the door going inward. And what did Yeshua say in the writing? And you can see it. It's the word, I am the door. I am the Dalet. The good shepherd has the staff of authority, opening this revelation to you to show you where you are weak and thin because you're diseased. You're not at ease because you're warring on the inside because you're not one on the inside yet. That's so amazing to see this. The door to fire, the door to fire, the fire that was taken out of humanity in the beginning that is being restored, the burning hearts, the hearts that are ablaze, plasma light fire activation of the Merkaba light body, upper and lower chakras united. Oh my gosh. Then we go into the word Amar. Now, I have shared with you guys before that the word lamb, those who follow the lamb, wherever it goes, is the word Amar that has an aleph on the suffix. So the word, that which is spoken to announce and affirm, that brings you into oneness unity, is the lamb that the 144,000 follow. Look at this. The mother who raises them up to be first fruit leaders. Really? Wow. But you're going to go into the door. You're going to go inward. And you're going to look for oneness unity. But at the very beginning, it's going to be bitter. And why is it going to be bitter? Because in the waters of chaos, you forgot everything. You don't know that you're united. You divided yourself out to your upper and lower self, your higher self and your wounded child, upper chakras, lower chakras, and you're going to have to go in to try to figure out where the disconnect happened so you can repair it. And it's going to be a bitter work, but it's meant to raise you up. When we look at this word in Hebrew, it means say, he said, told, uttered, commanded, ordered, but it also means he said in his heart. Why is that so important? Because we see the word light, aleph resh, that has mem in the middle. Light that has chaos on the inside. That's why the door is added in front. Because you have chaotic waters on the inside. And that very first word on the very first part of this verse was being completed. The living fire and water that you allowed yourself to go through to have the instruction on the inside, because your light was diminished because of the chaos. This is why we don't see the manifestation of our light bodies or the Merkabas right now, because we're trying to get rid of the chaos on the inside, which is the division of our upper and our lower selves that need to connect in the center in our heart. Our wounds keep us from doing this. The wounds keep us in chaos, but we're meant to be of the light, one light that has been raised up to be first fruit leaders. Now, when we get into this next portion, this is where we're quoting Isaiah, the written words in Isaiah. And it talks about Shema. Shema is a very, very big word. And again, people that are that have been within the Hebrew roots movement, this is like it's just a huge word. Shema, hear and do, hear and do, hear and do. To hear intelligently with the implication of attention, obedience, causatively to tell. So it's very similar to Amar, the word before, but this is with taking action. It's one thing to hear something, it's completely something different to hear something and then act upon it. Like if I'm sharing things with you and there's not an action involved with it, I'm puffing up your ego. I'm not affecting your heart, because it is through the work and deed of your own hand, by going inwardly to take these revelations, to do the work necessary to unite your upper and lower together. And why am I saying that? Well, because it's right here. Like it's Shema, right? Shema. So here we have Shem again. Of the living fire and water, those who are of the name, who have a mark of individuality, yet have honor, authority, and character, that have the eyes to see. And that's why they do. They have the eyes to see because they allow the purifying process to happen by doing what? The door was added. The door was added, and so is the Aleph. They go inwardly. And that which they do is to produce oneness unity. So when they wrote this about, so hearing, they will hear not, look at what causes us to hear not. Ah, this is so fantastic. Because you stay connected to your lower flesh. Meaning, you're not willing to do your shadow work. So you're in your fallen state, not lifting it up, not bringing the wounds into home where you would have peace. Because way this is written is, here's mother's mark. So you have mother's mark, which means you have understood how to treat others externally, the golden rule. You have learned to have reverence, deep respect for that which is out on the outside of you. I want you guys to connect to this. You have deep respect for that which is on the outside of you. Other people, laws, God. It's external orientation. But what keeps you from entering into oneness unity is because you don't have deep respect for that which is in you, which is connecting to your fallen flesh. You keep pushing it away. You keep pushing it away, and you're meant to connect to it. You're meant to connect to your wounded child beast ego. So on the outside, you're going to look as if there's this deep respect for all the external stuff. So you're not going to hurt people. You know, you might blow up. You might have your wounded child act out in your beast ego nature, all your shadow stuff that shows up when you have chaos. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hurt anybody. What it means is you're hurting yourself by denying that which needs to be healed. And you're not listening to it. You're not hearing intelligently your wounded child that is trying to get your attention. Now listen to this, part of what Ernest Klein has said about this word, and I didn't want to put it on the same thing. This Shema also means he heard with interest, he hearkened, he fulfilled one's advice, he listened to. What are we listening to? Why is this saying You need to listen to your fallen flesh. It's trying to talk to you. And it even has a meaning of sonority. And sonority is from sonorous, which is a person's voice or other sound, imposingly deep and full, using imposing language. Our wounded inner child is speaking very loud and clear. We're just not tuning in to listen to it or to give it attention because we don't want to listen to it. We don't have interest towards our wounded child. We just keep pushing it away. Now, not all of us. When I say these things, I'm broad-sorting, but I point all the fingers back to me. And so I want to make that perfectly clear. When I'm sharing these things with you, it's meant to pierce me. If it pierces you, then that's something that's great. That's showing you that you need to do some work as well. But I'm saying this for my benefit in hopes that it will also assist you. Because if I can find oneness unity in me, then that means I can begin manifesting that outwardly. That means I can see you in unconditional love. And then I don't need to be triggered by anything that you say or do because I'm not judging you. I did all the self-adjudication on the inside and I dealt with my triggers. So when we're not paying attention to our fallen flesh, it's saying and not. The reason why is because you need to connect to Mother. It's important that you connect to her because she is bringing the rod of correction, the rod of authority in order to teach you oneness because you're still not willing to deal with your fallen flesh so that you will understand. Now, connecting time, guys, connecting time. This is the same root word, the same word as in foolish, as in the wise and foolish virgins that we just finished talking about. Same word, Samek Kaf Lamed. This time, the Tav is on the inside. This is a huge piece for us to understand because this is having the fingerprint of the Creator on the inside that will then show you grasping a hold of the power by connecting to your fallen flesh. I'm going to say that one more time. The Creator, by having the mark of the covenant where you are no longer judging, is because you grasp a hold of the power of the instruction needed by connecting to your fallen flesh, because that's where the power lies. Again, activation of your Merkaba, divine masculine, divine feminine, needing to deal with your shadow. Because your shadow is your teacher. You guys, your shadow is your teacher. Just look at the definition of this word, of the Samek Kaf Lamed. It also means to offend, wrong, cause offense, injure, foolish, and ignorant, as well as understand. The beautiful resolve in this is that if you can see this and hear this, Shema, allowing yourself to go through the fire and the water so you have the eyes to see, to understand this because you went through the instruction, you will be given the ring of authority. You will be given the signet ring and the wedding ring, and you will be crowned as the bride who is connected to her fallen flesh. When the suffix has an aleph added here, so this word for understand, Samek Kaf Lamed, once this vav gets put on the inside of this word and the aleph is put on the suffix, this word then becomes understanding, intelligence, wisdom, consideration, and discernment. So that which did cause offense, that you saw as wrong and it injured you and you were ignorant to, as soon as you connect at the heart level and you enter into oneness unity where you're marked with that Mashiach Cha, the aleph on the suffix, you now have intelligence, wisdom, discernment, and consideration for others. That's huge. Moving on to Kazah, seeing. So again, Notice how they had Shema and Shema. So the two root words, they were comparing them. They were comparing what it looks like having the oneness unity, and what holds us back is the fallen flesh. Now we get into the seeing, and you're going to see the same thing. Same dynamic here. This word kazah, which is vision, this is what I've shared with you guys, has the same gematria of the Yod Dalet. Same. My people perish for a lack of vision. What is the vision supposed to do? Vision is supposed to reveal to you your fallen flesh nature through the divine feminine that is showing you the hidden teachings so that you can do what? Enter into oneness unity. So the way this is written, this is showing us oneness unity. The whole purpose of hearing and seeing is to bring forth oneness unity, because these are those that connect to Mother, having gone through the waters of chaos, who were once separated, but have now found life. They allowed the sword and plow to do its work so they could enter into oneness unity. See, behold, perceive, observe, consider, contemplate, be careful, watch, appear, be visible, be shown, and made evident. So this word, this vision that accompanies that which we do through the work and the deed of our hand will be made visible. It will be apparent whether or not you entered into oneness unity or not. It will be made apparent whether or not you used the sword and the plow, cutting off that which no longer serves you and plowing up the fallow ground so the seed could be planted so that you could produce oneness unity. It's going to be made evident. So then we get into vision again. And the same pattern follows. The Tav is added. So you connected to Mother, that's great. You have the mark of her covenant, so you have the external orientation, all good. Thumbs up. You've got her thumbprint. You've got her signature frequency. The divine masculine is settled. You are good. You are in proper order externally. But you're still choosing to stay to your fallen flesh and not lift it up. So where is the resolve? Connect back to Mother and let her instruction come to teach you the way of one. Find it interesting too that this word, the gematria for this word and not, is the same gematria for the word ul, which means to be mighty and to be strong. The only way that happens is by reversing the order of the letters. Ul is the root for the word God. Did you guys know that? Aleph Vav Lamed is the root word for God, El, Aleph Lamed. So to be strong as a strong leader, teaching shepherd, that is God, which means you have authority. You have authority over yourself. You've become one with one. If you guys watched the end of Brandon and I's conversation, or the mid, I actually broke down the Aleph for you of what it means. So entering into oneness unity, having the staff of authority, you've become one with God. But if you want the strength of that, you have to have your heart pierced. And that's the same gematria right here. So it's saying if you want that strength, then you must connect to Mother. You must be pierced. You must have the rod of authority and the teachings come to you to bring forth that which you need to learn about oneness unity. Because you need to learn it. It needs to be shared with you so that you can continue seeking on the inside until the Spirit fully reveals you in that secret place and you have the epiphany. You have da'at, you have experiential knowledge. You take it from your head and into your heart, which then transforms to your hands and your feet because you became it. That's what makes you powerful, connecting at the heart level to oneness unity. And the last word, know, known, and recognize. So the word that we were looking before, it will be made evident. It will be made evident and it will be made known. What will be made known? It will be made known those that are still clinging to their fallen flesh. It will be known that you have the covenant of Mother, which is really good because that means that you were kind to other people. You didn't bring harm. You had the golden rule. You understood reverence, deep respect for God. But it will be made known because that which you do on the inside will be seen, because the door is always about inside. And this is saying that if you go inward, you will see that you still are connecting to your lower flesh, meaning you haven't lifted it up. You haven't dealt with your fallen nature. You haven't dealt with your wounds. So you may be seeing and perceiving, but you actually haven't fully done it yet, because those wounds are still surfacing. And that is why all of this solar energy is coming in right now, because everything that you are not willing to deal with is being surfaced right now. That is why we've all had hell weeks. That is why we've had issues surfacing. That's why we see it in other people, because all of this light is coming in to reveal that which we have kept hidden, because we've rejected it, because we don't want people to see it. We don't even want to see it. It's the part that we don't want to be transparent about, but yet that's what the light is doing, is to bringing light upon it so you can be transparent about it and go, guess what? Here's my shadow. And I love it because it's me. It's part of me that I am embracing, because it got hurt, it got wounded, and my parents weren't able to fix those boo-boos. So I'm going to reparent myself, and I'm going to love it, and I'm going to bring it to the safe place of my heart, because me as my higher self would never do that. And I am going to parent myself and say, I am making a safe place for you in my heart. Come back home. Come back home. You don't need to be divided. And higher self, you don't need to shame the lower self, because that's part of you. Get over it. Come back home. Come back home into the heart. And that's when we live quantumly. That is when we affect everything past, present, future in our now. And it will be made known who has done this and who has not. And there's no guilt and there's no shame in this. It's just a matter of information. Do the work or don't do the work. It doesn't matter. Again, this information has no bias. It's not judging you. It's just giving you information. We're the only ones that judge. The language doesn't judge. It's just light. It's just love. But it is pieces to the puzzle to help us connect, to see what's going on with us so that we can actually do something about it. It's like, why isn't your light body being activated yet? Oh, because you still have wounds, because you're still dealing with your shadow. That's why. So the parables are said because it's meant for you to go inside to find out what the heck they're saying. If everything was plain of day, everybody would handle it casually and they would do nothing with it, because the treasure is meant to be searched out on the inside for you to dig it out, not for it just to be handed to you on a silver platter. Hey, come fix my problems. Give me all the answers right here. You're going to handle it casually. It's going to be common. And it's not sacred, because you are sacred. You are, by digging out your own treasure, by revealing that beautiful child, that place of purity and innocence that got hurt, and restoring it back to the place of purity and innocence, back where it belongs, in your heart, where it divided from it because it was hurting too bad, because it wasn't stewarded properly. You get to steward it. You get to bring purity and innocence back within. Now, I'm going to share one more word, and then let's open this up just to talk. Tahor. It's the word for purity, to be pure. Oh my gosh, I love this. It's Tet, Hey, Vav, Resh. The very first letter means you're going to wrestle. It's
You're
the
not-
Tet.
You're not sharing any screen. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm not. I'm
Okay.
just telling you the letters. I didn't, this is, the spirit just gave this to me right now, so I don't have a slide for it, because I'm talking about the spirit saying this is where we restore the purity and innocence by bringing our wounded child back into the place where it was like it was never hurt before. That's the true word. That's the true meaning of teshuvah, to repent. Has nothing to do with the external, you guys. It has everything to do with you turning. It's about you turning and allowing that fiery flame to come in and pierce your heart, to build you on the inside, so you can return and restore yourself as if the offenses and the harms and the injuries and the hurts never happened. That's why your beast ego, your wounded child, can come back home. It doesn't have to separate. And you don't have to ignore it because it's healed and it's whole. So tahor is the word that means purity, to be pure. It is tet, he vav resh. Very first letter talks about wrestling. It's wrestling with the snake in the basket, which is actually the seraphim message in the system of duality, understanding that your dual nature, your high and your low and your light and your dark, and then choosing to connect to them so that you can go to the next letter, which is power, which is yod. Then it's he, which will reveal, vav, that which pierces your heart, resh, to raise you up from being poor and destitute into becoming a first fruit leader. It's also the word for mountain, har, the wrestle of the mountain of you that can only happen by you having your heart pierced and connected, by taking the wrestle, the revelation, and the poor side of you, which is your diminished beast ego, wounded child, and bringing it back up to the place of purity and innocence. Isn't that fantastic? Oh my gosh. It is the restoration of all things. And here's the beauty of this. There is no word Torah in the New Testament. What it is the word I just gave you, purity and innocence, and it's Torah, which means mountain. Purity and innocence restored as one, because it is, the aleph is added. Literally, the word Torah in the New Testament is not that which we see. So you'll hear it. Somebody will say Torah as an Aramaic word, and you might instantly go think of the law. It's the change of what the law was meant, that you were going to have to wrestle it. You were going to have to go through the mountain of you, higher and lower. You were going to have to climb. You needed to connect. But that word now has the aleph on the suffix side instead of the he. It's wrestling the mountain of you, the uphill journey, the climb that feels like it's never going to happen, in order to produce oneness, unity. And it's all about your heart. What was that, Renee?
Can I just say something before you move on?
I'm done. Nope, I'm done.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say. I'm done. We are now open for discussion.
So when you spoke of this mountain,
Yeah.
it reminded me, I don't know where that is, in Daniel or Revelation, with the statue, the gold, the silver, the feet are iron and clay, the duality. And it says a mountain will come and smash the feet. Is that the same mountain you're talking about?
Daniel, that is Daniel. And yes, it is the same mountain. It's hard. It's interesting because so yes, it is, because Daniel is written in Aramaic. So what is smashing the feet in the dual system is the mountain that comes of those who have become one.
The revelation of this oneness smashes the
Because-
duality of the feet.
And why the feet? Because it affects your walk. When you have oneness revelation and you've connected everything into your heart and you're walking in the Christ anointing, the Mashiach, your walk is completely different, and it is seen and it is made evident to those who are around you, because everything that you do, your walk is different. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to wrestle. Because the word purity and innocence still has the tet. And the word mountain still has the tet. So we're going to go from one wrestle to the next, which is the continuance of the journey, because we never fully arrive. The whole process is a continuation of the unfolding of ourself, of the deep mysteries. You get one revelation, another shadow, another revelation, another shadow, another revelation, another shadow, until the complete revolution of time, where we're out of third density. And then we move into another season and another way of another mountain, another revelation that is going to continue propelling us into wisdom and understanding. So this process never stops. But the beautiful part about the process is you're always rewarded through it. Because once you take the one revelation and you heal the shadow, guess what that means? You get more light. You don't get more light until you deal with the shadow. So whatever revelation that you have right now, these solar codes that are coming in, the solar is going to be producing more intense light for that shadow. So if it wasn't intense enough, it's really going to be intense. It's now taking that big old, you don't have a flashlight, you have a big old searchlight now on that shadow. So it amplifies the light that is trying to heal your shadow. But as soon as you move from that place, a new revelation comes. So this is, I think, important. It was a huge piece for me to understand, and why my life changed so drastically when I got into the sacred languages. Because I didn't have what I needed to heal my wounded child before. I was going off of old manna, right? Like I was getting revelations in the church, but it became stagnant. There was nothing new. It was like, and my heart was crying out that there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more. That's why I was combing the English scriptures. Like there's a hunger and a thirst and a desire that I have that isn't being fulfilled. And the reason why it's not being fulfilled is because I'm not getting the revelation that I need to get moved from my stuck spot. Because you guys understand, this is what I've learned. And maybe you guys can, can attach yourself to this or go, yes, I understand this. But our stuck spots, the place of our wounds, will not allow us to advance. And that is why they keep surfacing over and over and over again. And this is the unfortunate part. When we choose to not see those wounds and not do something about it, we are going to change names and faces of friends to find friendships that will allow us to stay in our stuck spot until that friendship comes to you and challenges your stuck spot. So they could say something, they could trigger something, maybe they're getting revelation, maybe they're getting light and they're wanting to share it with you. But all of a sudden it triggers you. And because it triggers you, you will choose to separate yourself from that relationship instead of dealing with your shadow. So then you find a new friend. And it fulfills everything that you need until you get challenged at a certain spot. Because what happens is that the more revelation that people get and the more healing they get, the less likely that they are going to stroke your beast ego. That makes sense? Because we're catalysts for one another. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm growing, this is why I love my friend Regina so much, because we did have a head-on collision one time and it was painful. It was really painful. And we were separated for a couple of years, I think. I don't remember now because it just seems like a distant memory now. But that cattle and that head-on collision was for both of us. And we valued the relationship so much that we knew that when we had head-on collisions with one another, that the value of the relationship was so strong that we would take what we were learning from one another to deal with that of our lower nature so that we could continue to lift each other up. So one who is advancing spiritually, that is dealing with their shadow work and is dealing with somebody that isn't going to tolerate that of that lower vibratory nature. They're going to be the catalyst. That makes sense? So it depends on what the person is doing that is having that catalyst that isn't willing to stroke their beast ego nature. It's like, I am not going to allow you to continue throwing a temper tantrum in my life. This is my recommendation. This is what I'm sharing. This is what I have learned. This is what I've allowed. This is what has helped me. What are you going to do about it? Because if they continue to stay in the beast ego and they keep going around in circles and circles and circles and circles, this person that is trying to be the catalyst is going to be removing themselves a little bit more and more until this issue right here is dealt with so that they can come up a little higher. That's why we help each other. It's like rungs on a ladder. Like one will go up and then the other will match. And then the other one will go up and then you match. And then we keep doing this as we're all climbing the ladder with one another. That's why I say, and you've heard other people say, we are in this together. You are my catalyst and I'm your catalyst. So if I say something that triggers you, it's because there's a wound that needs to be healed. If you say something and it triggers me, it's because I have a wound that needs to be healed. It's so beautiful because we're wrestling this together. But when we overcome those wrestles, new revelation comes and we get to enjoy that together. We just know that we got to buckle our seatbelt because there's going to be some wrestle after the revelation. But we've got this. We're strong enough entities. We've been waiting for this. This is like the culmination of everything in third density is right here, right now. And we're doing it together. So if we're feeling there's like a separation and we're feeling isolated and we're feeling like some hurts going on, it's because there's still some things in us that we haven't connected on the inside to realize we're all one. That feeling of isolation is meant to drive us inward. That's why last year was such a phenomenal catalyst for everyone, because we can busy ourselves with things to keep us from going within. Like I busy myself with projects I'm doing, with things that I'm doing, with work, with television, with going out with friends, going to movies, TVs, dinner, you name it. Bridge games, board games, football games, baseball games, basketball games, my kids' sports. We can busy ourselves so much to try to eliminate that pain that we have on the inside of the suffering we have because we haven't healed our wounded child yet. And 2020 was a full sudden stop to drive us inward so that we could deal with those things, because all of those other things were removed from us. All of those things, unless you wanted to sit and binge on Netflix or Prime Video, like all of that was taken away. And it was purposed. So now this year we're coming through it. We have a second year, things are beginning to open up, and you will see who has done the work and who has not. The most beautiful thing that I've seen out of all of it is look at how all of us have connected online, wrestling together. Yeah, we're in separate households and we live in different states, but our hearts are connecting. We're right here, right now with each other. Same time, same place, same space. Doesn't matter your time zone. Doesn't matter where you live. We're right here, right now with each other. Because we're one. I see you, I hear you, I feel you, and I love you. You are me and I am you. And I now get that. And now I know, I totally get it. Yes, exactly, Renee. Thank you. Hosea 6. Totally. Totally. You can read that out if you want to. I'd love to hear you read it because I don't have it, but share that verse because that's truly, that's it.
Okay, well, I was just thinking about, it's 2 days since Yeshua was on the earth. So that's the 2 days.
Right.
Come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. Well, torn us to pieces. That's again, horrible language, but the division, right? It's the division.
We tore ourselves into pieces.
Yeah. And he will heal us. He has wounded us, but he will bind up our wounds. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up, that we may live in his presence. So let us press on to know the Lord. As surely as the sun rises, which it is now, he will appear. He will come to us like the rain, like the spring showers that water the earth.
So in that language, I'm already hearing the Hebrew words that are underneath that. Because the sun is Shemesh, and that is the servant candle. That is our heart chakra. And when we look at the word Lord, there's several different words for Lord. We've got all caps, and that's Yod He Vav He. And then we have Lord, capital L, and then small lowercase, and that's Adonai. That is a sovereign that has power. So this whole language in us rising, as we've been torn to pieces and we've been separated and we've been wounded, we have all done this to ourselves. This is what the Elohim did. And this is what I was sharing the other day, if you guys caught it. Elohim ends in Yod Mem. And Yod Mem is a representation of the goddess, but it also is connected to the waters of chaos. And there's a reason why. As Elohim, we came in as gods and goddesses, and we were given power, but we created chaos. That's why that mem is so important for us to understand that. And why in the New Testament, it's no longer Elohim. The chaos has come from our division. First within, because it says the Elohim were then separated into the light and dark. That's what created the chaos. But in the New Testament, Elohim becomes Allah. Aleph Lamed, Hey, Aleph. No longer Yod Mem. See, the goddess energy, the divine feminine energy, is to deal with the chaotic waters on the inside of us. Look at how much of our body is water. So that divine feminine energy is meant to heal us, heal our separation from being in pieces, fractured out. And I mean, for me personally, I had 6 different egos running simultaneously in my body from DID, dissociative identity disorder. I was fractured into many fragmented pieces. I had many egos running. You talk about dealing with a lot of beast egos. They were all wounded. And that was causing chaos in my life. And I was a very good actress. I faked it really well, because I learned to navigate my life through those multiple egos, not knowing I had them, because I had to figure out how to make my life work without knowing I was fragmented until I had more light come in and show me. Then that's why Allah comes in, because a strong leader teaching shepherd that reveals oneness to me, which really was the sacred languages, but a lot of it was my husband. My husband's a very strong individual, and he has oneness unity already in him. Like it's amazing. You know, I think he was a much higher, older soul that came in to help assist me, to help me bring my pieces together, to make a safe place for me, to be able to show what that looked like through his masculine and feminine energy, because Ken has a good balance of both. He can be fierce when he needs to, and he can be soft and gentle when he needs to, because he stands in his sovereignty. And he demonstrated that to me, and he made a safe place for me to come home. He's always felt like home to me until I was able to bring my fragmented egos to the place of home in my heart. Now I feel like home. And he provided that. And that's what I would like for us to provide for one another, that we would feel like home for one another. So that whatever pieces and parts that still need to come together and connect, we can do it together. And I'm not saying that you guys are all fractured pieces. Please, I'm not saying that. I just do know that we're all wrestling to some degree or another. And it doesn't matter what the wrestle is. It's a wrestle. Your wrestle may look different than me, but it's still a wrestle. You may have lots of wrestles. You might have one wrestle. It's still a wrestle. Thanks, Greg. And that's why we're here, supporting one another. And I love the fact that the language gives us light energy to be able to deal with it and for us to be safe, so that when we get to the place where we can say, hey, you know what, this is what I'm struggling with. I mean, I shared that in our group on Facebook. I was very raw and transparent with you what I'm struggling with right now. And thank you, Renee, for responding. It's a very big struggle for me, and it has been my entire life. I'm going to say it, I don't have all my shit together yet.
By the way, on that one, I've taken the resolve. I'm going to dive into the deep waters. I have a truck to fix next month for $3,000. And I've been thinking, should I not? I'm going to make the dive and do it. And let's see what the universe can give, you know.
That's awesome.
What. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to private message you about something later. I was going to ask you something, and I'm not going to do that here because it's a little too much information.
Sure.
about like where you live and whatnot. Like, we're not going to go there. I'm going to just private message you later. But there could be a reason why that truck is getting fixed. So we'll just talk about it later. We're going to talk about it later because I do believe that there is potentiality of a gathering that is going to be happening potentially in the fall, early fall. Something that Spirit's leading, putting on Ken and I in our heart, as well as some other people that we've been just kind of discussing it. And I don't think borders will be closed at that point because it'll be at the beginning of the fall before any flu season shows up. So
I have a lot of obstacles for that. Before COVID hit, my permanent resident card expired, my passport is expired, and I don't even know if the office is open to get that renewed. I have no idea. Things are up in the air. I can't go anywhere right now.
oh, we'll see what the Spirit puts on
Yeah.
you. We'll see what
yeah.
the Spirit puts on you, because I do believe that a gathering is going to happen and is going to be made available for us to be able to gather in the flesh.
I would
Um,
like that. Yeah.
It would literally be, now again, I need to say this. We are not creating a new religion, people. Okay. We're not creating a cult. I'm not saying that we all need to move and live in the same place. I am not saying that. Bloom where you are planted. Become oneness, unity where you are planted. But just like they did in biblical times, they did have times where they did come together and gather. And what did they do? What they were supposed to do is to gather and celebrate oneness, unity. That's what the gatherings were for. Now, we don't see it in the English that way of what the gatherings were all about. But if you see it in the Book of the Covenant lined up with the sacred wedding, you see the progression of why they would gather 3 times a year to celebrate the maturation of us growing into oneness, unity. So the feast at the end of the year, okay, you guys may have heard of this as the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Sukkot. But in the Book of the Covenant that was placed in the Ark, it's called the Feast of Ingathering. The Feast of Ingathering is the word Asaph. Suf means the end, and it has an aleph added. In the end, they will be gathered as one. That's the name of the feast. Yes, Greg.
Sorry, I gotta
It's
push a
good.
bunch of buttons. Today I heard you say twice, what was the word you used? Oh, toroidal math. And I think I know what that means, but could you just clarify that?
Toroidal math is reduction math. So what it does is it takes like multiple integers and reduces them into one single unit. So for example, taking the number 26, 2 plus 6 equals 8. So you take the number 26 and render it down into a single digit. You just collapse itself to its single integer. That's why mathematicians can use really long digits of number and then come down into small formulas, because they do reduction math to reduce it to a single digit. So these astronomical numbers, you don't get lost in it. It all collapsed down into a single integer. In fact, you can do that with a periodical table as well. And that's really interesting, because with the periodical table, if you reduce all of the numbers into the integers, you will find out which elements can be connected to one another based on the toroidal reduction math.
Makes sense. Yeah, I've seen memes with these mathematician scientists with this huge blackboard full of just equations, and they're like on a step ladder writing stuff down. So I could see how that would be useful.
Yeah, it's very difficult to express those things with a big whiteboard. Did you guys, do you remember hearing the dream that my husband had about the mathematicians? This is really, I wish I had the book with me. I'm in the process of reading one of Greg Braden's books right now. And it's talking about the quantumness of who we are. And it was so funny because this dream that my husband had, and it's really the expression of who we are. And I'm gonna go into some detail about this, because there's something in the Torah scrolls that is never shown in our English writings, but it's in every single Torah scroll. So Torah, again, the manuscript of the Old Testament that's written in the Hebrew, and it's in these big gigantic scrolls. Anyway, if you've ever seen a Torah scroll, they're pretty phenomenal. Anyway, the dream he had is that he was with a group of mathematicians, and every single mathematician was supposed to come up to the board and to write the equation, their equation of solving like what everything is. So their equation of solving all. And so Ken was there, and he was there as a mathematician, and he's like, why am I here? Math is not my strong suit. And so mathematician after mathematician, like you just said, step ladder, drawing all of their formulas. And when it came for Ken's time to come up to the board, the spirit simply said to him, erase the board. Ken erased the board. And then the spirit said, there's your answer. All potential. The potential of everything is nothing. That is 0 point. That is consciousness that is aware of everything, that isn't in the place of manifestation yet, but is potential awareness, everything, the totality of all, where nothingness is. And I thought it was so funny because Greg Braden's book used that to express the quantum particle. And he said, this is what it should look like. And it was an empty page. So I showed Ken, and he's like, that's what the spirit said. This is, and so Greg Braden's book is talking about that, the quantum principle of who we are as the equation of the sum total of our being. And I always flash back to in the Matrix movie when Morpheus takes Neo into the construct, right? And it's like this big white room, and there's nothing there. You can't tell angles. You can't see where anything starts and ends. It's just like empty space, all potential. And all of a sudden, 2 chairs and a television manifest because Morpheus created it in the construct. And that's what we live in. And that's who we are. It's like the potential of everything is at our fingertips if we can remove the limitations from our mind, because the sum total of the equation is everything and it's nothing at the same time until the observer puts a quantity to it and makes it actually happen. It's so incredible. So back to the Torah scroll. There in the beginning of the Torah of Bereshit, so the very first word, Bereshit, remember I said that there was no Aleph because Aleph is the inhale. It's inhaling, Bereshit. Well, the very beginning of Bereshit, there's this big dot, just a big black dot. And it's called the Dagesh Hagadol, the great dot. And nobody knows why it's there. Nobody knows why it's there. The Gesh, the door to gather and assemble the fire. Hagadol, the revelation that will continue the gathering process to lift you up, the door that goes inward so you can deliver yourself of your weak and feeble position through the instruction so you can have the staff of authority. The great dot, that was there in the beginning, everything that you need. Bereshit, to create the covenant of fire so that you can be the first fruit leaders that have a strong foundation from the very beginning. We just got lost in all the shuffle. Everything that we needed is in that dot, which is the totality of everything. The white fire and the black fire. The white construct with the totality of everything that we need through the sacred languages, the totality of every single one of us, the collective consciousness who makes up who we are. We're in the beginning and we created as the Elohim, and then we fractaled out from there. Are you guys getting that? It's like in the beginning was everything, and then we fractaled out from that point on, Bereshit. And then the light and the dark separated, and the waters and the lower waters separated, and it was tohu bohu. It was void and empty. But we were originally one consciousness, one great dot full of everything, potentiality, everything yet nothing that needed to experience its own creation. That's the great dot at the beginning before Bereshit. so incredible. It's like, it's not a mystery anymore because that's where we came from and that's where we're going to. And along our journey, which is a very long journey, it's not like just a blip and we go back to that. We get to experience all of this. What the law of one material is, this cycle that we were in was 75,000 years, 25,000 for the first harvest, which there wasn't any. Second time around, there was very few. And the third time around, we're at the end of the 75 years. And then when you look at Sanskrit, what was that, Greg? The Kali Yuga side, the Kali Yuga, is that what it's called? That we just exited out of? I don't know those terms.
Yes, the Kali Yuga, we've left the Kali Yuga. We're now in the Satya Yuga, or I guess the other way of describing it is the age of Aquarius.
Because that's where the light is coming in, because we just exited the densest part of darkness, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very similar to even like the law of one material saying that, with these cycles that we enter into and exit out of. And now we're getting into that place where the light has come to reveal the darkness so that we get back into the beginning, into a new epoch, into a new level of learning and growing and maturing. And this next one is all about extracting wisdom and understanding. That's so phenomenal. So pain and suffering is ending. Wisdom and understanding is next. That's beautiful. Anyway, I'm open. I don't have anything else more to say, man. I have been talking since 10:30 this morning. I'm worded out, people. Even if you thought that was possible, it is possible. I worded myself out. Yes, Kathleen.
You know what? I am so thankful that I found you guys. I mean it. I just pinch myself. You said something before about purity, and I felt a little stab in my heart because my name means pure. And people have given me cards, and because I'm a nice person, but I have never felt pure. I have felt under the old system that I could only be pure theoretically because, God was looking at Jesus in me. And I felt like I've messed up my life before. I don't even know how big or small it was, but I didn't feel pure. And I think now what you say about wisdom and understanding, I've been keeping myself in some kind of bondage of this self-loathing. And and when I listen to you guys, it's like I think, where was this my whole life? It wasn't, maybe it's my personality. I didn't pick that up in church. I picked up that I was a sinner and that I was constantly having to repent for everything. And this is just so incredible to me.
Oh, you're so beautiful, Kathleen. Thank you. Don't beat yourself up for it, because this was not available to us. It wasn't time yet. The energies weren't here to support it yet. The divine feminine was not released yet. So that is all we had. I was right there. I was in that religious system, and I felt that I was unworthy and undeserving. And I felt that my heart was deceitfully wicked. And even though some of those things didn't quite, I had a lot of self-loathing. So I totally comprehend what you were saying. But this revelation is because this is where we've come now. Like this is meant for us right now, in the here and now. And we had to walk through what we walked through, which was the period of darkness. This is why Greg, when we was talking about the Kali Yuga, this was the densest and darkest part of our sojourn we just came out of. And this is why you didn't have this available to you before. This is why we didn't. But we're now venturing out of it. So the light is coming to bring these revelations so that we can be liberated from that dense, dark time period of ignorance that we were in, based on the only amount of light that was presented to us, the only amount of light that we were drawn to. Because there are some beautiful things in the English Bible. There truly are. I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm saying that there's more information now for us to draw upon, because we exit out of that dark, dense period that we were in, that we were despairing because we didn't have enough light to set us free from the bondage of self-loathing. And now it's here for us. So that's why, and you're here and you're experiencing this. in contrast to where you came from, because I know you've shared some stuff with us, and it's beautiful because you're getting to experience this revelation and this freedom that we all are right now because we're in it together. It's like, this is incredible for us to be liberated, and we can help our brothers and sisters that are still stuck in those narratives of exactly what you just discussed. And that's why people share on Facebook or they make videos, is try to help nudge others along by those that are willing to listen. You know, if they're not ready for it, they can walk away. They don't need to listen to the videos. They don't need to click on the live streams. They don't need to read our Facebook posts. But there are those that are being drawn to the light. That's a really good question. That's actually a question Jamie has asked. Why would we choose to be separated and go through painful experiences? The reason why we chose to be separated is because how would you know what oneness unity is in its totality of being unless you experience separation? How would you know what joy is unless you experience pain? How would you know what freedom is unless you were imprisoned and enslaved? It's all for the sake of experience. And pain and suffering is a huge catalyst. That's why our lifetime here is not as long as it could be. Could you imagine if we were stuck in what we are in right now for 400 years? I laugh at that because I'm like, no, I'm glad that a lifetime is anywhere from 70 to 120 years, somewhere on that, right? It's, 120 is on the really good side, really, like as far as length of life, but it's meant to be short because the pain and suffering is so intense, but it's so we can experience the contrast of the opposite of pain and suffering, of joy unspeakable. Because when you get into oneness unity and you've healed everything, it's like a mother has a baby, right? That is some intense freaking pain. Now, I haven't had a child, but I have heard the stories, okay? And that's a lot of pain. But how many mothers choose to have more children after the first one? You would think that after the first one, they would go, hell no, I'm not going through that pain again. But the joy of having another child, they go and put themselves through it again. Because the joy outweighs the pain. So that you don't remember the pain. All that you see is the joy. But we have to have the contrast. That's what duality is about. Eventually, there will be no need for the dual system because we will come up out of it. The dual system is only about our higher and lower self needing to connect. The higher revelation of our self are lower wounds that need to be brought back together into oneness. This gives your higher self the opportunity to, okay, I'm going to share this one more way. The yod is a hand that is outstretched. That's what the yod is. It's an outstretched hand. So the higher yod, so let's look at that olive. It got blown apart. There's a higher yod that is reaching out, and there's a lower yod that's reaching up. And right in the middle is a vav, which means to connect. It's the number 6. It's equated to man. Man got blown apart, higher and lower self. But the higher is reaching out to the man, and the lower is reaching up to the man. It is up to the man, woman, humanity to connect the two. The pain and the suffering is a catalyst for the higher self to get off of its high horse, to reach down, to pull the lower up into the place of unity of one. So when we stay in this higher thing, this higher, I have revelation, everything's good, everything's beautiful, and don't deal with the lower nature, you're going to continue to have pain and suffering. You can try to look the other way, but it's never going to go away. You're fooling yourself if you think that you've gotten rid of it, if you haven't brought that into oneness unity. So the pain and the suffering that you feel, the separation that you feel, is because you need to connect with your higher self in the place of where you are right now, because it's reaching out to you. And that inner child that is kicking and screaming, needing attention, is reaching up. Will somebody rescue me? And it's up to you to do it. This is the problem that we see with external helpers per se. I cannot do it for you. I can't do it for anyone. I can be here as a support measure to say, I love you. Here, I'm going to give you some advice, but I cannot do it for any one of you, and you cannot do it for me. It is up to you to reach in to do it yourself. People can point the way. Gurus can point the way. Yeshua came to show us the way. Go within, go within. Take your higher to your lower and connect. But you're going to have to do it. I can't do it for you. That is what delivers you from the separateness. That's what delivers you from the great deception. The great deception is that you're divided, because you've never been divided. You've always been one. You've always been one. But you blew yourself apart for the sake of experience of the illusion. It's not reality. You are one already. But the illusion is that we're separated. And our wounds keep manifesting that illusion. That's why healing is so important. That's why these supportive energies are coming in to give us the ability, that which we need to raise ourselves up, to give us everything that we need. That's why the divine feminine energy is so mothering. It's so wonderful. It's like, let me embrace you. Let me embrace you, because that divine feminine energy, I was sharing this the other day, the divine feminine energy has been hidden away in the dark. It's comfortable with the dark. It's comfortable with your dark shadow side. There is nothing that you can have ever done in your entire life that is going to shock it, because it lives in unconditional love. There is not anything that will horrify it or make it reject you. The only thing that will make it reject you is you rejecting it. We have a choice. Allow the healing to come in to bring us into oneness unity, or continue acting out in our beast ego nature, kicking and screaming. But after a while, people aren't going to put up with the kicking and screaming anymore, especially if they keep giving you all the skills that you need and everything that you need to do, because you're not willing to, because you still want to stay kicking and screaming, because it draws attention. I've seen this in many people. I'm not pointing any fingers, because how do I know? Because I used to do it. I used to manipulate my husband by kicking and screaming and pouting and having a bad attitude so that he would pay attention to me. How immature is that? I'll admit it. I was a little snot sometimes. I'm just going to give you the silent treatment, and I'm not going to talk to you. And that's what I would do to him. He didn't do anything. It was me. I was kicking and screaming because I didn't find oneness unity on me. Because guess what? It was one of my alter egos that was acting up, wanting attention. And guess what? When I healed myself, I freed him. And our relationship is amazing today because of it. So if we want amazing relationships with one another, we need to deal with that. But this is a safe place for us to talk about those things, so that we can give support to one another. All right. I'm so worded out. Any thoughts? Anybody else's voice but me? I'm tired of hearing myself.
I just wanted to say to Kathleen there, don't feel like you're coming in late, because I'm just a fledgling in this 1 year, maybe barely 1 year coming into this oneness. It's just the energy that's here now. There's no, latecomers or early birds. We're all here in the same time. It's all happening to us at the same time.
Exactly.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you so much. I always see things in pictures, and this is so new to me, so please don't laugh, because I know there's a different meaning. But as you guys were talking today, and all this about coming into understanding and wisdom, and then just the beauty of people sharing and the wrestle and all that, it reminds me of what you've taught. Not that I've grasped it all, but that little diamond that you have over some of the letters, like the gift of God. I feel like it's a gift from God.
It absolutely is. That and we wouldn't be laughing at that. It's truly a gift that you see it that way, because it is a gift. Being able to come together like this, and our wrestle is as messy as it can be, and still extending love, grace, and mercy to one another, right? We can take the divine feminine energy that has been gifted to us and extend that out to somebody else. But here's the balance. That divine feminine energy reaches out for so long until that wounded child keeps acting up. And then the divine masculine energy has to step in to say, no more. I'm not stroking that anymore. In other words, boundaries. Because the divine feminine and the divine masculine are in perfect balance with one another when they get into oneness unity. This is where you can see a mature soul, because they start out with, and they always are projecting the divine feminine when they find it. This beautiful, loving, embracing, come on in, I'm going to give you a hug. But it will only last for so long until it becomes a detriment to that which they are assisting. Because if you continue to pacify, or you stroke that ego, and you're continuing consoling it without setting up boundaries, that wounded vessel is never going to learn to stand.
So Carrie, is it like, if you're able to see the oneness in the world, no matter how people act out or anything, and you do really feel love and compassion, and you care a whole lot about it, but you're not good to yourself, does this have anything to do with, like, how you said that it all has to be balanced, and the little diagrams you show with the, the light on the top and the darkness on the bottom, that if you're not being good to yourself, that it all has to come together?
Yes, because here's what happens. This is a really good question, Kathleen. What happens is, if you do not do the work within you, that which you are reaching out to help other people with will not be sustainable. It will self-implode. So this is actually what we see in narcissistic relationships with an empath. So the empath, a lot of times empaths haven't learned to stand. Now I'm pointing the fingers back to me. I was involved in many narcissistic relationships in my earlier years. And what was happening was, I didn't know how to set boundaries. So I was always giving, like I was pouring out all of my energy, giving all of myself, self-sacrificing for the sake of someone else that was continuing to take the energy from me, because I hadn't learned to set the boundaries to say no, or to walk away, or say, this is not working for me. I am going to hold my energy back. So what happens is, you'll see this like people in ministry as well. People in ministry tend to want to give to other people to mask the wounds that they have. Like, I'm going to go help. Because I need help, I'm going to go ahead and help other people. I'm going to give all of my energy, all my resources. I'm going to continue to serve. Meanwhile, they burn out. And why is that they burn out? Because they didn't do what they needed to heal the wounds, to set up boundaries, and they continued to give of themselves until they exhausted themselves. And a lot of times, and I'm pointing all the fingers back here at me, because my heart is for restoration. But I will get to the point where I will pour out so much energy to someone that I won't step back and say enough. And I'm learning to allow the masculine energy in me, the balanced energy in me, to say, I'm setting a boundary. I'm not allowing this to happen anymore. Because you need to grow up, because you need to mature. You need to deal with your wounds. I'm trying to assist you along, but I cannot be the fix for you. So yes, the balance has to be made complete within us first, or we will exhaust our own resources. This is why we have to know ourselves. We have to know what limits we can give, what limits that we need to step back. We need to be listening to ourselves, because if you go within on the inside of your heart, you will know exactly what you can do and what you should not do based upon where you are at with your energy resources. And all of us are different. Some of us, like for me, I'm an introvert. When I get done with my day on Saturday, I am plowed out for the next couple days. And then I work on Sunday and Monday now with a very demanding job. And so I am plowed out for several days, because I exhaust most of my energy, even though I'm doing what I love to do. I love connecting, and I love sharing the sacred languages. It's my passion, but it still depletes my tank, and I don't have anything left to give. So the detriment for me is to try to give when I'm in empty mode. The best thing for me to do is remove myself, fill myself back up, so I can give in my plenty, not in my lack. Because if I give in my lack, guess what happens? The part of my beast ego will show up, because my beast ego is trying to teach me I need to heal those wounds but it's also trying to get me to stand and to put up boundaries. Boundaries are a beautiful key. And the reason why we need boundaries is not all of us are operating in unconditional love yet. And boundaries as a sovereign is what helps us to honor and respect one another. It's an interesting thing. It's the mystery of the many who are one, but yet are separated. Meaning, as a standing sovereign in the autonomy of who I am as a vessel and being, this is really the word Shem, one who has a mark of individuality, yet is of the same name, that has honor, authority, and character, stands as a sovereign individually, but make up the one, the many that make up the one. So standing sovereigns do put up boundaries based upon the people that they are dealing with in their levels of maturation or immaturity, based upon where they are with their wounds. It's like, if I have a dog that continues pooping in my house, eventually the dog isn't going to be allowed in my house anymore until it can be housebroken, because I don't want dog crap all over my carpet. So I can choose to set the dog outside. Now, I'm not saying this, please do not take this. I've said things like this before and somebody has taken it that I'm calling them a dog. I'm not calling you a dog. I'm using it as an example, okay? So don't take it personal unless it's piercing you. And if it's piercing you, you've got a wound you've got to deal with. I'm literally saying if I have a dog that I'm an owner of and it craps in my house, I'm going to keep it outside until it can figure out that it can't come inside because it keeps doing that in my house. The unfortunate part, and I was sharing with you guys before in one of the live streams, I don't know when it was, but I was sharing the word with you guys, Bahima. And really the revelation that I was getting with Bahima, Bet, He, Mem, He. Inside reveals the chaos that will reveal to you that you're still a beast. And what I mean by a beast is that in our lower natures, without us understanding how to work with one another, we need to be instructed. So our actions and the chaos on the inside is going to manifest externally. Then this is when we become the Kayutha, those who are once separate that found life, that have power because they have the covenant of fire and they're manifesting oneness unity. So it's a shift between becoming from a Bahima to a Kayutha is in our position of maturation from where we start out, because 20 years ago I made a lot of mess. 20 years ago I was divided into 6 different egos. So trust me, I made lots of messes. I pooped everywhere. Pooped on a lot of people in my process of trying to grow up, but I didn't know I was dealing with 6 different egos. So once you get into the place where you continue to grow and mature, this is why I said, when people get to the place of oneness, unity, and maturation, the divine feminine is flowing freely. It's like, it's full of love. It's like, oh, I just want to be around you, until there's been too many things that have happened. And then the masculine has to stand up and say, enough for now. I need to set some boundaries here because you need to grow up and mature. And so I need to be a catalyst now as the divine masculine is putting on the brakes, because I'm going to be a catalyst to you to say, you now need to go on the inside. I'm loving you, and I'm going to be your adversarial friend now, because we're trying to help each other grow up to be sovereigns. Because as the Elohim, we were making chaos. As Allaha, we're bringing oneness, unity. But we have parts that are balanced, that both faces need to present themselves based upon where we're at, and we are in balanced unity. So we're not being tromped on too much, but we're not being overbearing either. We're bringing them back into a beautiful harmony of oneness. Joe, did you want to say something? I don't know if you were wanting to say something.
Yeah, usually when I have the same conversation, instead of using the pooping dog, I use the rabid animal outside the house. You're not going to let him screaming and kicking inside. You're not going to open up the door because, hey, we're one. It's like, no, you're going to come in here, you're going to destroy things, you might bite me. But when it goes away, you can leave some food out because you love it and say, here's some food, I don't want you to starve, and then eventually you'll domesticate, and you can come in, and then you can sit down with us,
That's good.
So I use that a lot.
No, I like that one. So, both of them, whether it's inside or outside, right? Because really the kicking and screaming beast ego child is what's on the inside, and it's pooping all over you. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I like that
It's,
though. I like that. The rabid animal on the outside. Yeah, I'm not going to let you inside of my house until we work a little bit more. We got to work a
Right.
little bit more.
And I think somebody's like in my head when I need to set a boundary.
Yeah.
Sometimes I try to say bandage instead of boundary in my head because it's like, okay, this wound's for me and you. Let's wrap it up. You know, this has got to heal a little bit. But then sometimes the physical boundary has to come up. It's like I actually had that at work yesterday. And a 55-year-old man and a 60-year-old man yelling at each other, like my 4-year-old and 6-year-old.
Oh my
And
God.
at work,
Whoa.
I was like, and it was funny because it was just kind of automatic, and I was like, okay, you go over there, and they were, I was like, you have to separate now, and they just looked at me, and they both listened like my children,
Wow.
and I was just like, what just happened? And I was just like, and I was, good for you, Joe, because I don't know, 5 years ago, I probably would have jumped right in there. Just started screaming out. I was like, let's do this. I love a good argument, a good fight, But
Yeah.
but no, it was it's, and I see it more and more every day now. People are just they don't even know what they're doing anymore. It's all coming out, and I just feel, because I interact with the public every day, and it's just, at least 50, 60 people a day are throwing fits this past 2 weeks. And,
Wow.
and it's just like, I want to give you a hug, but you got to stay outside. Like, we can have a conversation, but it's pretty, these solar energies coming in it's bubbling.
Yes, it is. And actually, I think that was a really good example of what a peacekeeper looks like. Because when a peacekeeper has found the authority on the inside of themselves. So again, let's look at the word shalom that I was sharing with you guys about shalom, the very first word in the verse that we were digging out. When you've gone through the fire and the water, when you've balanced them out, because realize, and I don't think I've connected this before, but the feminine and the masculine energy are also connected to the fire and the water. And I don't know if I've brought that up before. I might have in the sacred wedding. But really, when Shem is connected to the fire and the water, the masculine and the feminine energy that we deal with on the inside. And so when we find authority on the inside, it's the balance between the two. And the reason why you can then act as a peacekeeper like you did is because you find the balance within you so that you can represent that in the midst of the chaos. Because it's not in here. Like, you can witness the chaos on the outside of you, but you don't have to jump into it because you don't have the chaos. You don't have the warring between the divine feminine and the masculine. You aren't, you're not overly on the mercy side, and you're not overly on the severity side. You literally found the center path, which again on the tree of life is called the path of the arrow, and it's called the path of the mystic. And this is why Yeshua, the way we have it in the sacred writings, of the way it was presented, the way he was, is because he found and was the balance between the two. That's why he drew so many people to him, and why he could get in the midst. I mean, look at in the story, right? I always say divorce from the story, but it's a really good way of using this as an example. So in the adulterous woman, right? They drug her into the street and they're wanting to cast a stone. And what does Yeshua do? He comes in the midst of it, in his peace, because you can imagine, it doesn't take much to get your brain going and imagining what that scene would have looked like. So here walks Yeshua in the manifestation of the Mashiach, the Christ anointing, completely balanced energy. And he goes into a very horrible situation. Because again, what were they showing? They were shaming the woman. But if she was going a whoring, where was the man's responsibility with it? And how many of those men actually slept with her? And they were wanting to stone her. And so he's like, you without sin, cast the first stone. And then he wrote something, whatever he wrote. At least that's the imagery we got. But he came in his shalom to help it be a peacekeeper in a situation. And so when he said, go and sin no more to the woman, he's like, Don't bring your wrestle out. Your wrestle, the reason why you have the wrestle is you haven't found life yet. You are still separated. You are treating yourself as lesser. So this is manifesting because you see yourself lesser. You are all one. That manifested because it was the chaos in the inside of you that you're wrestling with. So stop wrestling. Stop wrestling. Accept the fact that you're one. Find life in oneness. Restore your purity and your innocence, because you're going to have to wrestle the mountain, but it's there for you. The resolve is there for you. Stop wrestling oneness, because that's where the chaos is. So he was really speaking to the inside of her. And that's what Yeshua did. And that's what I believe based on what we read of his accounts. Okay. I have imagery from being there in the time that he was alive. So there's things that I draw upon from a previous incarnation. But the energy that was put forth was such of unconditional love that it drew everyone to him. It drew him to the anointing, because what did he show at first? He was showing that beautiful divine feminine energy that everyone was being drawn to. And living in an environment where there was such masculine dominance, why do you think he had a whole bunch of women following after him? Because he was supporting them and he was giving them credence and the value of who they were in the embodiment of being a feminine entity that had been suppressed. The culture back then did not lift women up at all. He did. Paul did, believe it or not. The writings don't look like that in English, but he certainly did. Because he understood. He comprehended. He learned a lot. He was humbled a lot. Anyway, yes, Greg.
So Drew has a question. He says, does the Hebrew or Aramaic reveal what was written in the saying of that day? In other words, I think what he's saying is, does the Hebrew that we're reading, does that reflect the thinking of Jesus of that time?
Actually, what I believe that the English translations do, the English translations reflect that which was at the time of those who translated it into English.
Yeah.
That which was written in the Hebrew and Aramaic is timeless.
Correct. And we have other writings that reflect a different Jesus, more of something. Well, I don't even like calling him Jesus, to tell you the truth, but Yeshua. Mm-hmm. We have other writings that reflect more of what the Hebrew is showing us.
Yes. So again, when we take it again, I don't want to knock the translators so much, although I do believe that there was somewhat of an agenda when they were translating it. But based upon the translators in the frequency that they were in their levels of consciousness, allowed them to see what they needed to see to translate it to the level of the consciousness that they were at. And it was heavily male dominant and it was heavily fear-based. So everything translated from, like, into the King James Bible specifically, came from that perspective of the consciousness level at that time. But again, the Hebrew and the Aramaic are timeless. They are an energy frequency that is expressing this growing and maturing it doesn't have anything to do with the time. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the current affairs, because it divorces itself from the narratives. It is just information of light and love. Yes, Greg. Yeah,
so Drew clarified. He wanted to know about the sand, when Jesus wrote in the sand. I forget exactly where that was. I think was it in John?
Yeah, let me take
where
a look.
Where they were going to stone the woman.
Yep, which what we were talking about, hence why he wrote in the sand.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. Let me see if I can see this passage where Jesus wrote in the sand. Okay, that's good. We'll see if I can find, it's in John 8. John 8. Let's see if I can find the verse, if I can narrow it down. Still one of the people left. Look, okay, we're going to look at John 8, around verses 5. I'm just going to do an on-fly, take a look at this right now, and just see if I can see something. John chapter 8, and we will go into the Peshitta, and I will show the screen, and we'll just take a look at it and see if I can extract anything from it. Because a lot of times, many clues are given within the sacred languages that don't come across in the translation. And again, it's timeless. It's for us right now. So what is going on? Okay, Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard. Well, that's interesting. He stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. Okay, why is John Etheridge not coming up here? It's interesting because John Etheridge doesn't even look like Etheridge even translated John chapter 8. In fact, he didn't. He didn't translate the first 11 verses. That would be something to go and look and see why Dr. John Etheridge didn't translate the first verses in John 8. Okay, I'll do a screen share here. Let me get to the right verse here. I went too far down. Sorry about that, guys. It's just taking me a minute to get us in the right spot here. He wrote on the ground. Okay. We'll do a screen share and see if we can look at this together and see what it's saying. All right. And again, he wrote, oh, well, that's interesting. The Aleph Tav is added to that. There's the word Kitab. He, she, they, it, ascension, araya. So something in stooping down, this is so interesting. Okay, let me jump in here a little bit further. I know you guys don't see. Do you see this little mini screen that popped up, by the way? What I'm scrolling on, do you see that? Okay, all right. Again, furthermore. So if it's tet bet, and what we see instead of the tet bet, again, furthermore. So he's coming, so the scenario that we're seeing that's written here is coming from the place of the heart that's been pierced as mother through the covenant about building on the inside, grasping a hold of the door. And then we have the sacred languages here, because I know the Aleph Tav is added. The Aleph Tav is added to the front of this word. So in the stooping, what is that? That is Gimel Hey Nun, to stoop down. So in the beginning and the end was stooping down to lift up, to produce revelation for the flesh, that which was written, the power through the covenant for the inside. So again, it's hard to see a lot of these with the narratives, because when we dig into the letters, it like divorces you from the narrative itself. It's like, okay, so here's what it's saying in the narrative, but what is it saying to you on the inside? So the covenant is meant for you to be on the inside, but you got to pierce your heart. Because it's in the after of grasping a hold of going through the door, you are going to stoop and bow down, meaning you are going to humble yourself based on what is being written to you. So this is where it's difficult to connect it to the narrative about what Yeshua wrote, because what I'm sharing with you is the hidden esoteric side of how to appropriate the written hidden words to lift you up with light, to bring you into oneness unity. Does that make sense? It's very difficult to connect it to a narrative, because the language through the Father's teaching doesn't connect it to a narrative. So in other words, let me word this differently. When we have healing and restoration that happens to us, we divorce ourselves from the narrative of that which happened to us, and we heal the wounds so that we're no longer connected to the narrative. Wounded child is connected to the narrative, that which happened to us, and keeps it in its own hell loop, when the language is meant to relieve us from the narrative, divorce us from that, deal with emotion to bring us into oneness unity. So every time we try to bring the narrative into the sacred languages in the place that's revealing that wound in us, we're going to make it and we're going to twist it and we're not going to see what we want, because everything that we do, we have been taught to project it on the outside of us. So what we're looking at right now is more about us and not the scenario of what Jesus wrote in the sand. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that makes sense. This is something that Brandon and I talk about all the time, about the difficulty of extrapolating the narrative into what is being said, because this is all about us divorcing ourselves from the narrative, separating out from it so that we can just deal with the emotions and the wounds instead of attaching to that which wounded us. Because if we attach to that which wounded us, we're always going to project those wounds outwardly, and we're going to blame things on an outward scenario, and we're going to stay stuck in that loop. Oh, my dad beat me with a belt. I could go back and get stuck to that. I got liberated from that a long time ago. I don't need to go back to it. I'm not attaching to the narrative anymore. I dealt with that pain that happened from that. So, and eventually some of those things just fade away and you don't even think about them anymore because they're not there. You're not stuck in them. So this is saying that these writings are going to help and humble you so that you can turn through the spirit breath and ascend with the earth. That's what that verse is saying. Because Araya, Aleph Resh Ein Yod, is the earth is the place of light, Aleph Resh, so that you can see oneness unity. So really the New Testament, in regards of what we just saw, was the writings that are talking about the ascension of the planet itself into light, and us coming along in that journey by humbling ourselves, that will raise us up with the earth as the earth transitions into more light. That verse that I just looked at is that's what it's talking about. So it has nothing to do with Jesus writing in the sand, unless you want to attach to the narrative. And again, like I said, Brandon and I, we go through this all the time. He'll bring scripture to me and I'm like, that's the English narrative. Do you want to know what it's saying to you? Or do we want to, what's the word I want to use? Oh, what's the word when you're trying to figure out? I can tell that I've used up a lot of my words and my energy is fading. When we begin conjecture. So we can go and have conjecture all day long about what happened in that time of the narrative. So what did Yeshua really write? What was he really saying? What was going on? There's so much conjecture, because unless we go back and we were there in that moment and we were either Yeshua or we were the harlot or we were the people that were trying to stone her, it's nothing but conjecture, because a lot of these writings were written hundreds of years after Yeshua even lived. So
John was 100 years.
Yes. So if it was 100 years after he lived, these writings are meant not for the narrative. These writings are meant for us to mature by what it is speaking to us today that is timeless, because the language of light and love is not connected to time. It's outside of time and space. It's literally quantum in our now. So we get hung up on trying to bring the narratives into it. And I get it, because we've all been trained that way. Any of us that have had the Bible, that has been our foundation, everything has been about narratives. Everything has been about stories. Everything has been about the linear orientation. That is divine masculine. Feminine is the vortex, the quantum that brings all of that into the now. And I know it's hard. This is a huge hurdle. Huge. And I still fight it all the time. And I have to stop and go, wait. This has nothing to do with Yeshua. What is it saying to me right now? What is it saying to me? What do I need to know on the inside of me so that I can be released and healed and become whole?
Carrie,
Yeah.
I was thinking that at the beginning, right when you said that one part about him, stooping down and not paying attention to what was going on, that he was going into the heart of that's just my opinion. He was going into the heart of what was going on. He didn't listen to that narrative. can you imagine they were probably screaming at her and she was having her feelings, but he got right to the heart of it and didn't pay attention to that story that was going on.
And that is, see, that's where you can, okay, this is a perfect example. I'm actually glad that you brought that up. To help us understand where the narrations and the narratives fit. And then we'll have to go because it's already 3:30. Oh my gosh. It just blows me away to look at the clock and go, how did we get to 3:30 already? But the narrations help us with mother's teaching, the linear orientation. So what you just shared, Kathleen, is a perfect example of us sharing and learning and growing from experience in a linear fashion of something that happened externally. So can we learn from that? Absolutely, we can learn from that because of what you just said. He went to the heart of the matter. This is exactly how mother would teach the divine masculine. Because the divine masculine is trying to connect the men, that masculine energy, back to the heart level, because masculine energy many times disconnects from the heart. I'm just going to get stuff done. I'm going to build and I'm going to build and I'm not going to worry about this. Men don't cry, constantly divorcing the self from the heart when the energies are meant to continue connecting at the heart. That's how they connect. The heart is the servant candle that connects both. So the divine masculine here that mother would be teaching is exactly what you just said. It would be a teaching mode to say, what was Yeshua doing here? Yeshua was connecting at the heart level and wasn't listening to their words. He was seeing the heart. That's how mother would teach. Father then comes in and teaches what I just shared, letter by letter. What does this mean to you personally? Divorce yourself from the story. What is this saying now to you to heal your wounds? What is the divine feminine bringing? Divorcing you from the story. Don't worry that your father beat you with the belt. That has nothing to do with it. What are you seeing in this moment that needs to be dealt with to bring that wounding and healing into oneness unity? That's the difference between mother's and father's teaching, between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Both are needed. This is why I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I do find the Aramaic translation does read different. So if you get an Aramaic Bible that then translates it into English, it does read different than like your NIV, the New King James, the King James Bible, things like that. It does read differently. And that is a beautiful piece of literature to teach mother divine masculine energy from. You can learn a tremendous amount from that. But if you want to go in the deeper dive, you got to look at the letters and dig them out like I try to share with you guys. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What we're doing here? Okay. Because that was a perfect example, Kathleen. I'm really glad that you brought that up in that manner.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have anything else to say? Because I really could continue talking, but I really don't want to be exhausted until Wednesday.
Yeah.
If not, it's just been an honor to be with you guys today. I mean, I feel a lot of peace here today with you guys. As much as we've had thank you, Renee, as much as we've had difficult weeks, and I'm saying weeks because I've had these past 2 weeks have both been humdingers for me. Today, joining with all of you guys, everything feels right as rain again. And I know it's because we're supporting each other in our wrestle. And it's beautiful. And I love that we're part of each other and part of each other's journey, because of what's coming out of it is something so beautiful, so magnificent, something that we've always hoped and dreamed for. And it is happening and it is beginning to manifest. And we're getting to experience some of that right here, right now. And it's going to happen. It's incredible. So thank you for sharing your journey with me. And thank you for letting me share my journey with you. I appreciate you all so very much. And I hope that they were having a good time in YouTube too, if people were still connecting. I know Drew was over there. I wish he would have joined us on this side, but I'm glad that he was over there too. I love having Drew around. He's awesome. He's family. I miss it. Joe had to jump off, but I'm sure I'll be connecting with him later. So I love you guys very much. Shalom, shalom, and namaste until we can meet again.